Hey y'all, it's Anna V, and you, my friend, are listening to the All American Wing Shooting Podcast. I am a hunter, conservationist, mom of 2 girls I have raised in the outdoors, and a proud owner of a truck full of dogs. My passion is guiding you to confidence, sharing in tradition, and celebrating the true meaning of success in the field. Here we go. Welcome back to another episode of All American Wing Shooting Podcast. Today we have a friend that I met from the very beginning of my wing shooting experiences, and I'm so excited to catch up with Gabriella. She is an award-winning writer. She is the host of the District of Conservation podcast. Welcome.
Good to talk to you, Anna. It's been a while. I saw you, I think, at one of the recent SCI shows, but I think since our first meeting in North Georgia a while back, I think it's 2019. So it's good to catch up with you and join your program. Look forward to talking with you.
I know. Okay, so there's a constant theme on here that starts like this. Trevor Santos introduced me to. It's either Trevor or Trevor.
Yes.
And, so I just remember when I first got introduced to SCI through Trevor, there were very few of us females that were trailblazing hard truth. And he's like, you have to meet Gabriella because you two would be such a dynamic duo. And we've talked off and on for so long about doing things together, and it just never seems that we're going in the same direction. But it's been really fun cheering you on.
Yeah, you too, seeing your whole journey. And I don't know what happened to, I don't think I see your Instagram stuff, because were you throttled at some point?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy. They were attacking a lot of female hunting accounts. So no, I used to see your posts all the time, but now I think that they throttled your account. I don't. So that's the way.
I lost it completely.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Some other women have been successful in getting it back, but I think others I know have had trouble reclaiming it. And so they've had to start over. So that's really, Instagram is so crazy. Meta is just so crazy when it comes to all this outdoor stuff. Like, they don't understand, and they're so very influenced by like AI, powered by AI. I feel like it's not so much nefarious forces. They've just shrugged off all responsibility. So there's no human you can talk to. It's just AI chat or cat robot or whatever.
It crushed my heart because I didn't realize while I was traveling around all the people, the friendships that I made, that literally we were connected only through Instagram.
Oh, that's a shame.
And then you lose it. And it was like, how do I ever remember all the people that influenced me, that encouraged me, that I was so grateful to have? Because not only were they following me, but it was a way for me to keep up with them. And you were one of those people. So I did start over, but it is deader than a doornail. Like, I cannot figure out how to rebuild. It's just like, I just gave up.
It's changed as a platform too, because they only show your posts to people who don't follow you. And I thought the whole concept was, and point of Instagram was, okay, you have followers, so shouldn't they be seeing all your stuff? And as someone who has analyzed social media in the past, like generally speaking, even outside of the outdoor industry, I've heard a lot of complaints from people across general influencing with travel, food, fashion, city stuff, whatever. It's been terrible for a lot of people. So I don't think it's entirely isolated to us. Like, we get scrutinized more in the outdoor industry because we use supposedly violent tools and whatever and all that, and gore and all that. But it's starting to, I think, become platform wide, where I'm seeing a lot of people I know of different backgrounds and different interests, like, see that Instagram is not working for them. So it used to be isolated solely to us. And I think now everyone's realizing, oh my gosh, what is happening with this platform? It used to be fun. It used to be very easy to use. And now they've like had an identity crisis in terms of like what they want to do. Do they want to be pictures? Do they want to be video? Do they want to be real? Top copycat, whatever.
That people aren't controlling it. It just probably goes on its own tangent.
I think that's what it was. And then you have, especially as it relates to hunting, what I think may have happened to you is someone may have found your account and a bunch of animal rights activists could have spam flagged you. I've seen this happen to other people. You have no way to, I would say, petition to make sure that your account can be, you don't have any like recourse whatsoever. You have no appeals process. So if people spam flag your account, you're told without notice. Never has happened to me. And I hate to admit, I've been very careful a little bit lately with what I've been posting. Just because all the,
it feels so wrong.
It is.
It's so wrong to not be authentically you. But it's like, what good do I do if I'm not there at all?
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. Like, I could lightly introduce it. And I mean, also, these last few years have kind of been coinciding with me not having as successful of hunts, or I haven't been hunting. So that could be my excuse with why that's not working. But for me, I think the last time I harvested anything, I was in South Georgia, and I didn't have any problems posting my doe. I got it on the last day of muzzleloader season, and it was very like tasteful. And I explained like this is what went to the process. So I think fewer people, but still, like, even if you're like the target of different, bad actors, they don't care about your explanation. But so far I haven't been attacked, and I'm not saying it couldn't happen to me, but they they flag you for like really innocuous. Like, I've had posts of mine say that they're not eligible for monetization, and then I find out later it was done in error. So I don't know what's going on.
Too, with the tater bugs on everything. So, oh my God, then I have a minor involved. And I'm like, oh Lord. Cause she had an account too, and they took her off and said crazy. That she was like a minor with guns. So
crazy.
You did all types of like gun safety intros and how to, clean a bird, blah, 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 like dog handling. She did the whole thing starting when she was 5. So I don't know. It's
weird because the law says that kids can handle guns safely with parental help. At some states, it could be below 10 years old. Other states say if the kid is 12, 13, perfectly legal. So they should follow the law.
Well, okay. Well, she was like really little, and I was living by redneck family rule. So it's just,
I mean, you could still show kid handling stuff safely, which is what a lot of people do. And I have no doubt you were doing that as well. But
right,
they would much prefer that over actually terrible content that is exploitative of children or just dangerous. Like, I don't know what other activity, like kids doing illicit drugs or something. Like, that's less problematic than kids handling firearms, which is crazy to me that they even put those two on the same level. Or we'd even say hunting or handling firearms is even worse than partaking in illegal, illicit behavior. Bonkers to me.
Okay, so I know we're on a tight schedule today, and you have so much to talk about. So last week, I did catch your story that I reposted about what's going on in the waterfowl world, and it kills me that an assumption that a lot of wing shooters make is it's easy to say, okay, yeah, like the big game people are getting attacked. The safari hunts are getting attacked. That's always under attack. And it's easy to overlook that wing shooting is getting attacked. And so I'm hoping that all the awareness that was made through SCI, Ramsey Russell, Blood Origins, when Australia almost eliminated duck hunting this last year, and a lot of our friends rallied around that cause, and they kept it. So not only did they prove, hey, you guys have plentiful amounts of waterfowl to keep your season, but you have more than you've ever had. And so, I saw your post and I said, oh my gosh, I need you to come on. I need you to talk about relevant issues, what's going on, your involvement in DC or locally. Just spill your tea.
Yeah, that's a tall order, funny enough. But I'll do my best to condense it. Yeah, no. And, I like working with shorter time frames too. And I could even dispense for hours if I wanted to, but I feel like that's more of a guy thing. And I think women were more simple, to the point. I want to try to get this as condensed and simply understood as possible. But there's a lot of policies that a lot of sectors of the hunting industry may not think affect them, but I think ultimately would if we're...
Please stop there and get a little deeper in what that statement meant, because that is our probably biggest issue of all.
Sure. Everyone kind of gathers into their hole or into their little corner in the hunting world. This happens often, but groups like, I think, SEI, Sportsmen's Alliance, and others, Howl for Wildlife, have done a good job drawing awareness and saying, we all need to work as a team. We all need to work together. Doesn't matter what type of thing we target, what season we hunt, what type of shooting we prefer. It's all going to come ultimately for us. So the anti-hunters, who are paired very closely with animal rights activists, and radical environmentalists, there's a lot of overlap between all those interest groups. They have a lot of the same common interests. They have the crazy multi-billion dollar donors who are contributing to causes that would ultimately, even if it's gradual, get rid of hunting altogether, because that's their modus operandi. That's their goal, their mission statement. So what they start to do is they attack hunting that they perceive as low-hanging fruit. So they may start with predator management. They may start with bear hunting. And for those of us who are in hunting, that's not low-hanging fruit. That's extremely important because you don't manage predators. I live close to the city. I've seen coyotes in my backyard. I've seen people's dogs get attacked by coyotes. Living really close to Washington, D.C. or an urban area, even when I lived in California, coyotes are extremely prevalent. And if you don't have a management system, your pet is going to die, depending upon where you live. Or if you live in the rural areas, they'll come after your livestock or create some sort of chaos. Or what a lot of the turkey folks are pointing out, rightfully so, is that predators like coyotes are actually eating the turkey poult. That's partly contributing to, lack of habitat, of course, but I would say the aggressiveness and kind of predation by coyotes have led to the decimation of turkey poults because they're hungry.
Story right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So predation by coyotes, whether, like I said, doesn't matter where you live, you're going to be affected by predators. And then I think the people who are least privy to that message will understand when their dog gets eaten by a coyote. That's really a simple, I hate to put dire, circumstances there. That's the scenario where you'll get even the 80% who are kind of ambivalent about hunting, as we always talk about in the industry. They will start to care because they'll lose their beloved pet.
Yeah.
Or they're attacked by a coyote, get rabies, heaven forbid, we don't want that to happen to anyone. But predators have to be managed. And then same with the big game animals. So bears and wolves, a lot of fire when it comes to that. I personally don't see myself hunting a grizzly bear, and I don't think I'll ever hunt a wolf. But I support the management. I would like to get a black bear because black bear is very delicious. I think for where I live in Virginia, we have a huge population. Our bear population, unfortunately, is suffering from mange. I don't know what is explaining it, but some University of Georgia studies are hoping to find out what exactly is happening. But our population, despite having mange, is generally perceived to be really healthy. A couple thousand bears are taken every year out of our 20,000 population. So black bear is very healthy. So I see a justification for that. And for me personally, to go hunting because it's in my backyard, it's cost effective. But even if I don't personally want to take a grizzly bear or a gray wolf, I have friends in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem who are directly affected by government regulations that seek to allow any management or bring management back to the states when the species have fully recovered. There's been a jockeying back and forth from the courts, from Congress, from others about, grizzlies and wolves. Are they fully recovered? Should they be delisted? And I won't go so much into the weeds of it, but when the scientists have traditionally found that those populations have recovered, they have brought back management to the states. So then you have animal rights activists, environmentalists suing to stop that from going into effect. And now we see wolves have threatened protection, grizzly bears have threatened protection, and now they're trying to regulate all grizzly bears as one single population instead of separate segments. So the grizzly bears of the Yellowstone ecosystem shouldn't be regulated like other grizzlies in the rest of the country. And so you completely distort science. So even if you don't support predator management or big game management, they don't just stop there. We have seen, as you pointed out, Australia is a great example. I even saw this with recent rulemaking. What was it? It was avian flu relating to Canada. Mm-hmm. And waterfowlers here in the United States sounded the alarm. Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, others, because I think to all of us, I think especially to me included, I saw that when they were stopping the imports of duck carcasses, which were believed to have avian flu, but they weren't necessarily proven to have it, they put some restriction, and to a lot of us, we interpreted it as Canada saying, don't come duck hunting, even though the fears had not been realized quite yet. You can monitor and check.
What were they going to do? We can't bring them south, but those ducks and geese were coming south, whether we brought them back.
No border's going to stop for birds.
And was punch was throw all common sense out the window and put people in panic.
Right.
It's
the avian flu is a serious thing, of course. But the way that Canada was handling it at a time when limited evidence was around, to me, it just seemed like Canada was just trying to put a restriction carte blanche through this kind of obscure regulation at the time. But obviously, we're having to deal with avian flu now. And now it's being found in livestock, oddly enough. And of course, in birds. So I'm not downplaying it, but I was saying that I was trying to convey that they were using something that wasn't yet defined or truly threatening and saying, you can't hunt because we have to study this. Even when you've had certain circumstances, even with CWD for deers, you can still hunt deer. You just have to know what goes into it. You have to make sure you identify deer that have it or exhibit the characteristics of it. So it doesn't mean you stop hunting altogether. But in their mind, a crisis like that or a situation, what is to stop animal rights activists or environmentalists and say, okay, we agree with this. Please stop this because it's slaughter of deer, it's slaughter of, waterfalls if you continue waterfalling, if you continue to hunt. So they will agree with these kind of obscure but still very damaging prohibitions, whether it's done by rulemaking, whether it's done by outright ban. And so duck hunters will ultimately feel it, because if they gradually knock out all these little so-called low-hanging fruit forms of hunting, they will make their way to waterfalling, because they're like, ducks are so cute, we shouldn't harvest them. And I like ducks. I think ducks are adorable, but I think it's okay for people to hunt them too. I've gone duck hunting myself, and it's a fun type of hunting. It's a tough style of hunting, especially in certain winter conditions. My first baptism by fire waterfalling was, we had the bomb cyclone in January 2018. I was hunting with a married couple friend of mine. We were going to a WMA in Virginia, completely frozen solid. So we regrouped and had alternative plans to hunt just across the state lines in North Carolina in the Currituck Sound. So it was a lot of fun, 12 hours of really intense hunting. We only got maybe 12 ducks. I got my first ruddy duck. But it was such a good experience, and I've been craving to do more. I think I'm going to do some more duck hunting later on this year, hopefully in the South and Florida and some other places. I've been talking to Ramsey about doing some together with him, maybe in my region here in the Mid-Atlantic. But if we give them an inch, they're going to go a mile. So I think that's what we have to hone in on your podcast and all these other venues that we have. And I try to do this anytime I'm given a forum to talk to any type of style of hunting. We have dog hunting here in Virginia, not so much like you get the dog to flesh, but you're hunting alongside dogs, like as part of a tradition. So hound hunting, whether you're hunting with hounds for deer, which is legal here in Virginia. I think you can hunt with hounds for bear in certain counties, certain areas. I don't want to put out misinformation. If not in Virginia,
I did in West Virginia. It's amazing.
So maybe our neighbor West Virginia has it. I don't remember if you can hunt with hounds in Virginia. So maybe our neighbor West Virginia. So I'm going to put that out there instead of not spreading anything misinformed about Virginia. But certain forms of hunting here in Virginia, we can hunt with, like, outrightly, like deer. I know for certain you could do it with deer. And so, yes. So I think they knock out these forms of hunting. They're going to come eventually to the not so low hanging fruit and say, this is the same type of cruel and unusual treatment that you do for bears and for deer and for coyotes and this. So who is to say that they would stop at one form of hunting? And we see this out west, especially, where they're knocking out mountain lion hunting, grizzly bear management, black bear hunting. They have tried to do it, and I think they were successful for a time in Washington State, and they got a prohibition stopping the spring bear hunt.
That guy is always on top of black bears.
Yeah.
I mean, they just got was it Louisiana?
Louisiana just allowed it, yes. So for some reason, for so many years, they had this refusal or kind of reluctance to do it, even though the science supported that the population there had exceeded carrying capacity. It's a healthy population, and there's a hunt that's warranted. It hasn't happened in Florida yet either, even though the bear population there has grown to a really healthy number. You see a lot of bear encounters. They're going into people's garages and houses and stealing food. So that should be a sign even to any person with common sense that, okay, if they're going into the city areas, maybe they're not doing so bad. Maybe they are actually doing really well. We had a lot of bear sightings here too. We just had 2 in the immediate area, one in the next town over, really close to Washington, D.C., and then one in D.C. proper, not downtown, but in one of the neighborhoods of Washington, D.C. So that's an indicator to me, even with someone who doesn't have a biology degree but trusts wildlife science, that if a bear is being pushed out by the mother into the city, maybe things are not going so bad in terms of the health of biodiversity. Like, hunters have been, if you remove hunters from the occasion by these death by 1,000 cut prohibition, you're going to have an actual biodiversity crisis, which is what they accuse us of undertaking and committing, even though hunting in North America, especially in the United States, has shown to be boosting biodiversity, boosting health numbers. I mean, is it perfect all the time? No, because we sometimes have diminishing numbers. I know here in the Southeast, in Georgia too, it's included in this, like Virginia, we have suffered in the South from diminishing turkey numbers. And there's a conversation, what is behind it? Predator management, habitat loss, lack of predator management, habitat loss. Like, what is explaining turkey numbers dwindling? Are people harvesting too many? So people have had to go back to their state agencies. The managers have had to, go back to their councils or to their superiors or the people who oversee policy making in terms of seasons and whatnot. I've said, okay, what is happening here? And so we are
the reality of it is that they don't do away with hunting. they take it away from civilians. They put it into, it's part of the state's job. So then they pay somebody to do that instead of allowing hunters to bring in money.
Yes.
And they're totally eliminating rights. It's all about people's rights because they don't stop taking animals. They just take your money to pay somebody to go do it.
Yes, for taxpayer. Yeah.
In California. And I mean,
it's happening everywhere.
A simple explanation. But like, people don't understand that they're not really protecting. They're just changing the way, or they're changing who does it, and they're using them to do it.
Yeah. We have this here in my county where if they view that not enough deer are harvested, they will go to one of the nearby parks and they will do like a culling when other hunters, myself or others, could have helped take out some of the deer, give a special permission, a tag. I don't mind paying a $15, $30 tag. Just give me the green light to go help manage it. Like, they should come to us. And that's not necessary. I don't think that's the issue of my game agency. I love my game agency here in Virginia. They do a great job. They're responsive to hunters. It's a county decision. Sometimes the localities may be more strict than the guidelines set by, let's say, my DWR. So I don't think it's necessarily a game department issue. It's sometimes the county is more restrictive. And then I think the game departments just have to follow, unfortunately, what some of the localities are stipulating there. But even federally too, where if there was an instance, mountain goats in Grand Teton. So you cannot generally hunt in a national park. But instead of tapping into hunters, like through a lottery hunt, what do? They hired snipe shooters from the federal government, which was a lot more expensive, a lot more time constraining, instead of deploying hunters who pay their dues. Again, a lottery system hunt would have been great. People will happily pay for that.
Are actually participating and contributing to the Pittman-Robertson Act.
Yes, instead of taking this out of the equation.
Keeping the cycle going. No, they just eliminate people's rights. Then they take taxpayers' money to pay for it when we would have happily have paid for it ourselves.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have these animal rights groups intervene on lawsuits if they block the hunts, or sometimes rogue localities and counties are like, we don't want to have they don't agree to an extended hunting season. So then they're like, we're going to hire sharpshooters to remove it and remove this particular species because they're in excess. It's like, no, you wasted a lot of taxpayer money when that could have gone to just issuing more permits or just letting people buy a special license for urban hunting.
It should fire hunters up to know this is happening all over the country. Okay, I know you're on a time crunch here. So you live this every single day. I mean, you live in it, but you also, this is your job to be educated and to educate others. What is your number one soapbox for wing shooters? And what do you encourage them to do to make change?
That's a great question. I think for wing shooters, I don't think that I would hope that they become open to doing different forms of hunting, to not just stay in wing shooting. For me, when I started my hunting journey, I think the best way is to start with small game like birds. So anytime someone new comes into hunting, after me, I'm an adult onset hunter. So for me, I've hunted 7 years, going on 8 years. And I always tell people that try all different forms of hunting. Don't get stuck on one. So I think for my soapbox for waterfowlers is don't get stuck in dig.
We're leaving our dogs at home.
I mean, you could bring your dogs to other types of hunting. I'm not saying you stop waterfowling altogether. I'm saying open your mind to other forms of hunting so you know what the other hunters are going through. And also you're going to get different types of meat and different experiences, and it'll enhance your waterfowling experience because waterfowl season, depending upon where you are, it's really short. I feel like it's super short here in Virginia. Some others are very lucky to have a longer, protracted hunting season for waterfowling. So the season is short. So you want to keep going, you want to train, you want to be focused mentally, whatever. Adopt the other forms of hunting too. So you can be exposed to what we're dealing with policy-wise, politically, just to know that it's going to eventually come for waterfowling. And I guess the best way, to your second point, to get involved, I listed some of the organizations: SEI, Sportsman's Alliance, Howl for Wildlife, and of course the duck groups, Delta Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited. There's so many different groups you can be involved in. And then let's say you become passionate, or you see some restriction happening, or someone is writing letters to the editor saying, we want to ban waterfowling because it's inhumane to kill cute little ducks. So you see something attacking waterfowling, you best try to make your voice heard, whether it's, creating a social media video or writing like an op-ed or a letter to the editor, or maybe perhaps putting yourself up for consideration to be a commissioner or someone who will have a lot of influence in your state wildlife agency. Governors right now, for the most part, in very hunting friendly states, appoint people to positions. So if you get to befriend someone, I guess in the case of Georgia, befriending now Deputy Director Trevor Santos, because now he's Deputy Director at Georgia, I think DNR. And so one of the derivatives of the DNR. And so, talking to people, befriending people who we know, or who and generally speaking, who wield influence in these wildlife agencies, and they need people to appoint to commissions or certain boards, things. Mm-hmm. That I think is where actually you can make even more of a difference than in social media, where you have a seat at the table. You are helping to influence, do we change waterfowl season or not? Do we lengthen it?
Oh, next time, write a check to keep these people that support us, that represent us properly in office.
Yeah, as simple as you could do, and caveat and say, like, put my money to good use, jokingly. But there's so many ways to get involved. And I think going to whenever state legislatures have like lobby days, same federally. SCI just had their big lobby day. I wasn't able to attend it but I attended one dinner with a lot of people who did lobby day, because I was at Professional Outdoor Media Association. We had our conference in South Carolina up until that morning. So I had to drive back, and I missed the lobbying day, but I've gone to lobbying days before. And for me, now that I have another position where I do a lot of policy making, so I don't do lobby days, just to kind of separate my policy work, because I have to deal with congressional staffers and lawmakers myself. So I don't want to double dip or cross-pollinate too much in there to kind of separate it from my work. But I will support the efforts, now, even being more established as a policy person. But early in my policy career and early in my media career, I did a lot of lobby days. So I think going to your state legislature, your state capitol, lobbying, even if no bills about waterfowling are on the table for that legislative cycle, still meeting with your lawmakers who could potentially impact or potentially influence or change, regulations, depending upon the state. Because like I said, some states vote to change the regulations in their state legislature. Some simply rely on their game department, and the game department will influence the legislature. So the legislature ultimately can change hunting season lengths. That's essentially what it is. So you're going to feel that impact even more directly than I would say sometimes even a federal rule or some federal lawmaking from the Department of Interior or whatever. So your state legislature, you're going to feel the most impact, whether it's a lengthening of a season in a positive way, adding more season. For the longest time, the East Coast had blue laws restricting hunting on Sundays. It made no sense to me why that was in effect. They were like, well, it's going to prevent people from going to church. I'm just like, that's a silly misnomer, because people can wake up really early, go to the blind, if it's duck season or any type of, season.
Yep.
And then they can make church by, I don't know, noon, 2 p.m., 4 p.m., even. You can make church and still fit in hunting. Like, there's no way you have to separate between the two, or whatever, house of worship you go to. It's not impossible to do both on Sunday. So it was a crazy kind of like, I don't know if it's colonial era from the country's founding, like these silly blue laws which wouldn't have increased church participation whatsoever. But they were meant to keep people off the field. And so Virginia, up until recently, we had like prohibitions of Sunday hunting on private and public land until the governors got rid of those, because it was a bipartisan measure. And it was like, thank goodness they realized this is going to hurt economically. It's going to hurt conservation dollars. And so many people working can't go hunting during the weekday. So that Sunday is so precious. And again, it doesn't take away from church attendance or house of worship attendance. And so, stuff like that too is extremely important to make sure, like, if you're in a state with a remaining blue law, that's a little north of us, I think in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and some of these other states that are very stubborn, which historically have, a foundation in hunting, but they've kind of lost their way as a hunting state. So they still have a few blue laws left over.
Now their mission for keeping that in place is not the original purpose.
Sure. Yeah. No, they twisted it to be like, okay, we support these prohibitions. And it's not so much the churches opposing it. I don't want to hold them accountable to it, but some people who are like, well, hunting would happen too close to my house of worship
every Sunday if I'm home. And I've never heard anybody say you shouldn't be hunting on Sunday.
It's a Northeastern thing. There's not much of, I hate to say this, there's not much of a religion up there. So I think that's partly why they have kept those rules in place, even though like they're not going to use it to be like as a cudgel to be like, go to church, don't go hunting. They don't care. They just use it because they like the prohibition side of it. They don't care about the religious side of it.
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of engaging your lawmakers.
Like, two birds with one stone, because
some of those. Yeah, South Carolina had that for a time.
If you don't hunt on Sunday, they're just
the two are not mutually exclusive. You can go to church and you can hunt on Sunday. Like, you can do both. Why restrict your ability? Like, we're multifaceted as people. We can do a lot in one day. Like, not overextend ourselves, but you can do church and you can hunt. Like, it's very simple to do that. We live in a time where both should be fun, because you release stress when you go to both. You can be connected, to a higher being, to God, to nature. Some people view nature as their church, sometimes, and then they supplement it with church attendance. So
people, you need to follow this sweet child of the South who I absolutely adore. Her name is Lake Fulcher, and she has started this church in the woods, or church in the tree.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she is a powerhouse. I mean, she's like in her mid-20s, adorable, and she is like, I just have gone in hunting. Like, and I love her mission, and she's very open about it. And so you'll get a kick out of all of her posts.
That's cool. No. So that's a really obscure rule, but there are still a couple states that still have it, but they're mostly gone. So they're pitting church-going people against hunting, which is stupid to do in the South, because people like both, especially here in our region.
And that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, in Virginia, people debate whether or not we're truly a Southern state. Let me tell you, it is still a Southern state. You go below a certain city, and you'll hear the drawl. It's good home cooking, good salt of the earth people, even though we've come in the northern portion where I live, it's very industrial. And I'm a transplant to Virginia, and I like the Southern aspect. I've been to the Southern portion.
Hear it, Gabriella. We hear it.
Virginia is still the South, for anyone who is questioning. And so just going through, lobby day, getting involved. And if you're brave, like I said, putting yourself up for a commission board appointment, that's extremely good, because then you can actually influence the policy and prevent anti-hunters.
I want you to get on our soapbox for wing shooters, for our youth shooters. I want you to be involved with the youth clay world so bad, because this ban against lead ammo would kill our youth shooters. And it is such an amazing sport for our kids, the independence that they're learning, their self-image that they're building, because they do get a team aspect, but they're competing individually. And I just know what it has done for me. I've seen what it's done for my own kids. I've been really involved with the SCTP here in Georgia, and I've worked their national events. And I would love your voice in that world, because I know that you tackle everything with the best positive attitude, even the unknown adventures that you've been on. You've talked about it, and it was really cool to hear you, because I was kind of doing the same thing at the same time. We just jump in the deep end of the pool and we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to have a good time learning. And we're surrounded by so many people that encouraged us to just figure things out the hard way. And so I know that you're always in the hunting community, but I would love to see you involved with our youth shooters too.
Yeah, if I have the bandwidth. My travel schedule is kind of crazy, but I'm trying to keep full time open. So you never know. If you get me early enough, potentially I can be involved that way. But no, yeah, back to kind of, this gradual restriction thing. I know some people in the waterfowling community are like, I don't care about lead, get away with it. But you said for youth shooting, it's still a very integral part to that. And for most forms of hunting, it is. And some people are like, well, it's such a low hanging fruit thing. Lead is doing this. I'm like, nobody is personally ingesting lead. I've never ingested lead fragments. I don't want to ingest lead in the solid form. And I always, whenever I use lead, try to leave my place better than I found it. I'm not going to be littering with lead. Like most hunters, for the most part, I would like to think we like to pick up the trash, pick up any refuse, whatever that we leave behind, if it's a shell or whatever. But that is done to make people priced out of hunting or fishing too. It's even affecting fishing. California, they instituted this lead ban. They have seen an economic decrease. They've seen lower participation in these sports. It all goes back to it. Again, it's the death by 1,000 cuts measure. In Europe, believe it or not, I found a study from the EU that said that if they were to implement lead prohibition in Europe, they approximated that 25% of hunters would stop hunting altogether. That's a big share of hunters. I can't imagine what the percentage would be here if such an equivalent study was conducted. I think it'd be even higher.
Yeah.
That's what it is to me, because people will be like, even though you're not spending that much on lead, it just adds up. Like the alternatives, for waterfalling, we know, we use non-lead shot. That's what it is. That's just been the common thing, and that's fine. But you look at the whole industry, hunting industry, and you don't see the gun makers saying, yes, let's ban all lead, outside of, or let's not use lead outside of waterfalling. You don't see the hunting groups saying that. So why are these outsiders telling us what we know better, what we know best? Because they're doing it because they don't like hunting. And then they're claiming, well, hunters are endangering themselves. It's like, you don't know us. Like, please leave us alone. Yeah, you don't know our best interest. You're coming in from the outside, lecturing to us what we know better. And you're putting up misinformation about lead, because lead actually, there was a study from the CDC, and we can do some more, discussions about this later on. But the CDC and the NIH, I know they're pretty doubtful these days, but they had a comprehensive study about blood content between lead shot and non-lead shot among venison. So they found in their study that there was only a 0.03 difference between lead shot in venison and not lead shot. So it's a very minuscule difference. And you have to be able to not have such a low opinion of hunters who are just going to like eat the meat with the lead shot. Like, we treat that wound, we get rid of any lead fragments. Same with, fishing. Nobody is it's stuffing. I mean, well, there are some idiot, competitive fishermen who were stuffing fish with lead to give off the appearance that their fish were heavier, but nobody ingests fish with lead. But you're going to find more lead fragments probably in bigger game, of course. But it's easily removable. You just have to examine your meat and make sure you don't eat it. So again, it doesn't sound like it's going to affect you as a waterfowler, but it will, because you give them this permission to go here. What's to stop them from waterfowling? Like I said, that rule with the USDA, with Canada, that could have been seen as an attack. To me, it was an attack on water. Not as overtly as you would think, like a prohibition, like what they do with big game. But to me, it seemed like they were being fed misinformed science, probably by these animal rights activists who were creating alarmism about avian bird flu. Like I said, a very serious condition, but at that time, it was not yet, a threat, so to speak. But even if you have a threat, you could still manage ducks, and you could still import duck back into the United States from Canada, because we have that exchange where you can do it, and it's perfectly legal and not against the Lacey Act to transport meat across North America to take home with you. Why not? You worked so hard to get it, you should be able to take it home. I know it's different from, Africa, Europe, where you cannot bring the meat because they have different rules in place for that. But in North America, you tell people who go up there that you can't bring geese, you can't bring ducks. Like, why? That's crazy. And they try to follow the science too. Nobody's wanting to import or take with them, rather, meat from Canada that is potentially carrying a pathogen. Like, that's crazy. Everyone's very careful about what type of meat they bring in. If there are any problems with the meat, they just discard it safely, or maybe they eat it in Canada, or they, give it to a proper entity to properly dispose of, or to scientific inquiry if there is a problem. So hunters know how to manage and account for these type of things. So it all goes back to that, Anna, in terms of death by 1,000 cuts. It may not affect waterfalling. It'll eventually hit you through some form or fashion. Don't underestimate these people.
Well, if you are just intrigued with all the things going on behind the scenes, you must follow Gabriella Hoffman, District of Conservation Podcast. She's on it every single week, updating hunters, shooters, the outdoors industry about what is going on in DC. And since I've met you, you have been such a powerhouse voice for us, and I appreciate your commitment and all the hurdles that you face every single day.
That's very sweet of you, Anna, and keep up the good work too. You do a lot to educate people in this space, especially waterfalling. So happy to be a resource, and I hope your listeners can connect with me, follow the podcast. There's a lot that's going to be coming down the pike from the regulation side, and I also follow what happens across the states too, because everything policy making starts in DC, but it affects all the states and vice versa. So we try to keep a whole comprehensive view, not only what happens in DC close to me, but also what is happening all across the country, because it's important.
It is so important. And I hope to see you on a hunt this year. Maybe we can pull something off.
Come to duck ranching in Florida. Maybe we can make something happen there. My friends run that outfitting business there. It's a really fun little thing. So,
all right,
look into duck ranching.
Right. All right. I look forward to it. Thank you.